Burrows.
Good evening, everybody. Would you please be seated? Item 1 on our agenda tonight is the webcast and introduction. May I ask the webcast notice? Shall I say that again? No. Right. Item 1 on our agenda tonight is the webcasting introduction. May I ask Gary Woodall to please read the webcasting notice?
Thank you, Chairman. The Chairman would like to remind everyone that this meeting will be filmed live or recorded, uploaded to the internet, and will be capable of repeated viewing. Therefore, by participating in this meeting, you are consenting to being filmed and to the possible use of those images and sound recordings. If any public speakers on Microsoft Teams do not wish to have their image captured, they should ensure that their video setting throughout the meeting is turned off and set to audio only. Members and public speakers are reminded to turn on their microphones before speaking and turn them off when they have finished. Thank you.
Item 2 on our agenda is apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies for absence?
Thank you, Chairman. We have apologies tonight from Councillors Barnard, Cornish, Hadley, Rizvi, Williamson, and I believe we have apologies for lateness from Councillor Nweke, unless he's online. No, he's not. So,
Councillor Holly Whitbread.
Thank you, Chairman. Apologies. Apologies for lateness from Councillor Sue Jones.
Thank you very much. Councillor Whitehouse.
And apologies for lateness from Councillor Mandy George, please.
Thank you. Item 3 on our agenda is declaration of interest. Are there any declarations of interest? Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to declare a non-prejudicial interest in item 10, Members' Allowance Scheme. That's for 2 reasons. One, I made a submission to the panel, and more importantly, in a number of different guises, I've known the chairman of the panel, Stephen Lai, for many, many years.
Councillor Bassett.
Thank you, Chairman. I thought I'd better declare a non-prejudicial interest in item 14, being Chairman of Qualis and also Chairman of Community Transport, who's one of the grant recipients.
Thank you very much. Nobody else?
To declare an interest in item 22.
Thank you, Chair. Likewise, please.
Okay. Noted. Thank you. I would also like to remember members that I will be a voting chairman tonight. Just to note that, if you would, please. Item 4. Where is it? Members, before you a copy of the minutes of our meeting held on the 17th of December 2024. May I sign those minutes as a true record of our meeting, please? Thank you. Item 5 on our agenda are the chairman's announcements. Well, I can truly say I'm having a right royal time being the chairman of the council. Last Friday, I had the honour to be invited by the City of London Corporation to celebrate His Royal Highnesses, the Duke of Gloucester's Golden Jubilee anniversary as a Ranger of Epping Forest. The event was held at Lopping Hall in Loughton. And for those of you that don't know, Lopping Hall, it was built by the City of London Corporation in return for the local people giving up their lopping rights in Epping Forest. One interesting fact is that the exterior of the back door tells the story of the forest in Victorian terracotta tiles. I am sure many of you have passed this doorway and have never noticed these tiles. Well worth a look next time you're passing in Loughton. I would like also to congratulate our Youth Council, who were in attendance and gave a presentation on their use of the forest and of their hopes for its future. While speaking of the royal events, I am delighted to have been invited to the Royal Garden Party at Buckingham Palace in May. So I hope our weather improves by then for that. And finally, if it's not too late, for you to join me to help raise funds for the Essex and Herts Air Ambulance this Saturday at Thornwood Village Hall for a quiz night. Anyone who would like to join us, please speak to myself or to my Vice Chairman. Thank you. Item 6 on our agenda is public questions. Do we have any public questions?
Not tonight, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 7 is questions by members under notice. Do we have any questions by members under notice?
Again, not tonight, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Item 8 on our agenda is reports from the leaders and members of Cabinet. Written reports can be found on page 15 and 30 to 36 of our agenda. Our Councillor Chris Whitbread, as Leader of Council, would you like to present the report, please?
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, since we last met as a council, I think most of my time has been taken up with LGR, local government reform, and devolution on a regular basis with 2 Essex leaders and chief executives meetings that I've been in attendance of, North Essex Council's committees as we move forward following the government's white paper in December. There's an awful lot of work to be done in quite quick succession with the next piece of work to government by the middle of March. I have been speaking with officers and members as to how best that we deal with this through from a council point of view to make sure members are kept up to speed. There's been some very good webinars so far by the county council and district council chief executives that I think have been very informative, but it is important to keep everyone informed here as well, and I think the best way I can achieve that is by setting up a working group or a PAG. I'm trying to work out with Mr Woodall which is the best way to go at the moment, but it will be made up on a pro rata basis of Conservatives, Loughton Residents Associations, Liberal Democrat and a senior independent member to bring across the whole council and that expertise of what this council does and hopefully some understanding of what the county council does as well, so we can start to, you know, as a council, get our mindset ready for whatever training we might need as well during the change process. There's an awful lot going on, as you can tell, and of course at the same time we need to focus on doing the day job, and I know my cabinet colleagues have put forward all their reports this evening. They continue to be extremely busy across the council. And again, I know I'll mention it later on this evening in the private items, but again, our officers, Andrew and Jennifer, have been actively engaged in all this process as it's been moving forward, and of course also been focused back here, making sure that things are running smoothly in the at home as well. So it really is a home and away situation at the moment, and we are working extremely hard to make sure that Epping Forest has its voice clearly heard amongst the other councils. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Councillor Whitbread. Any other Cabinet members would like to give a verbal report at all? Councillor Tim Matthews.
Thank you, Chairman. It's a pleasure to be here this evening and with a report with some relatively good news from my portfolio and share some positivities of what Qualis has been doing in relation with the council. And I just wanted to take the opportunity to raise 6 other points, if I may, and share with members so that we're all up to date with positive news. I know the negative news always will travel faster, but it's my job here this evening to give that positive news as well. So I just think we're going to, point 1 is around the budget. We're going to come on to the budget later this evening, but it's worth noting that the budget is supported by £2 million worth of annual income from Qualis, which totals up to £11 million so far. So that is what is fundamentally supporting the budget, and obviously if that 2 million of interest wasn't being paid, then we would be having a much tougher job to balance this budget and having to look at severe cuts instead. It's also worth noting we've got support for the budget from the interest that we've acquired from the Google money. Again, I think it's worth noting that while it was a big team that was involved and a lot of people that put a lot of effort into securing that Google sale, the Qualis team were also very actively involved in that and actually did that work at a 0% fee to this council. So that was something, again, that has really helped to support this budget that we're going to later hear this evening. In terms of other positives, we're at the position now with Verdant Place that we'll have a practical completion on the 28th of February, and I'm pleased to report we've already got 2 reservations on that site. So it's worth noting as well that that development was an enabling development which was linked to the original planning around the sports centre. I know it gets very confusing and we have to dig back into the memory to work out how that all was set up, but just to briefly go over, to enable the sports centre, there was multiple other sites that all had to be linked, and part of the condition for the planning was that those sites were initiated. So that was started, and I'm pleased to say that that's going to come to practical completion on the 28th, and as I said, we've got 2 reservations. Another positive was at Cartersfield site, which is also known as Waltham Connect. This was the commercial development which we managed to, which Qualis and the team managed to build out, sell ahead of schedule and on budget. So that was really, really positive position. Small gripe of mine was that we couldn't hold on to the ownership of it, but it set the blueprint for us and give us a brilliant example of what Qualis can do and what kind of revenue can be generated. So that brings me on to my 5th point, which is Brooker Road, which will be part of the discussions this evening. I'm pleased to report that Qualis are completely ready to roll with that if given the green light from the council, and that is a development that will be done for the council, and we will retain the ownership of that, which we'll be looking at an annual income of approximately 560,000. So when we come back to looking at balancing budgets in years to come, that will be a nice hefty lump that can come in, and I'm sure members will understand that's why my focus is really pushing the Qualis and commercial development in this area, because that is going to be what really supports our frontline services and makes our job, particularly in the Cabinet, a lot easier when trying to balance the budget here. So finally, bring on to my last point, which is around the commercial management. Just since taking over, Qualis have actually generated an extra £3 million for this council. So again, hugely positive, and that's been through, you know, management techniques and negotiations and ensuring that we're getting absolute best value for our commercial properties. So that concludes my addition to the report, and hopefully members welcome the positive news. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other Cabinet members who would like to speak? No. Right, thank you very much. Next is item 9 on our agenda, and this is questions by members without notice. I will allow the usual 30 minutes for this item. May I ask those wishing to speak to clearly indicate their intention, and can I ask that you are brief and to the point? That way everyone that wishes has a chance to ask a question. If you have more than one question, they will be taken individually, and you may have to wait until other members have spoken to ask your second question, if there is time. Thank you. Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Chairman. My question is actually in reference to the visit you've already referenced, Lopping Hall on Friday, and it's to the member of Cabinet who was in attendance, so he's the only one I can ask the question to. That's the Housing and HGGT portfolio holder. Would he agree with me that the people of Epping Forest owe a huge debt to the Duke of Gloucester for his 50 years service as the Honorary Ranger for our forest? But would he also further agree with me that the highlight of the whole event was to hear our Youth Council speak about the wonders of our forest and the importance of our forest, only matched by the delightful contribution from the children from Thomas Wooding Girls' School, which I'm proud to say serves part of the Loughton Roding Ward, was he equally impressed by their contribution and understanding of the wonders of our forest? And wasn't it lovely that the younger generation were there talking up our forest and understanding its importance?
Thank you, Councillor Murray, for those kind words, and I do agree with you totally that His Royal Highness Duke of Kent has contributed many years' service to, as the person in charge of looking after the forest. And also, I think everyone was impressed with the performance by not only the Youth Council, but the Thomas Willingale School children. And I thought the poetry seemed to flow quite well between the different groups that were there. And there was one person who, for me, stood out in particular, and that was one of the senior lads that was speaking at the beginning. He spoke eloquently and decisively, and he carried across, I could see him being a future Prime Minister, actually, from the way he spoke at that meeting. He was definitely destined for higher things, the way that he was talking. So, yes, I totally agree with you. It was a very interesting morning, or afternoon rather, because I think we got there about 11:30 till about 2 o'clock. And the chairman was there as well, which made it even more enjoyable. And I think the best bit of the day, actually, was not the speaking and that, it was actually the roast beef horseradish type rolls that were there. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Pond.
Thank you, Chairman. It arises partly out of Councillor Matthews' supplementary report, and it concerns the west side of Loughton High Road, which the council bought some years ago, and which is comprised of a number of units, not only Centric Parade, but also the properties to the north of Centric Parade, the principal of which is an outfit which is labelled Fable Stores. Now, this unit has, in breach, I think, of its warranty to continue trading, has not been trading for at least 2 years. It is a very great nuisance on the principal part of Loughton High Road Shopping Centre. And can Councillor Matthews assure the Council that it is not as much a fable as its name would imply? In other words, that it is going to trade and is going to be a vibrant part of Loughton.
Councillor Matthews.
Thank you, Councillor Pond. I can tell you it will be my very first email after this meeting to get confirmation on that, and I'll come back to you. Thank you.
John Whitehouse, please.
Thanks, Chairman. Yes, I'm also grateful for Councillor Matthews' update on the Verdant Place development. It's good news to know it's reaching practical completion. Can he give a similar update on the Springwood Grove development right next to where we are? Has building work resumed on that, and do we have an estimated date for practical completion for that?
Thank you, Councillor Whitehouse. Yes, I can update on Springwood Grove. It has been an immensely stressful project, as I've alluded to in my various updates. We are in a position now where work has been continuing to be done with the contractor and on various different arrangements, and we've been working towards getting into a final contract, which obviously we're in the final stages of, and I would expect it to be completed actually next week. So I will happily come back and update all members once that has been completed. Once we've got that position firmed up, then we'll be able to give an accurate date. But at the moment, we're looking at 12 months from now, really, to practical completion. But obviously, as I say, once we've got this signed next week, then we should be in a very strong position to have a date locked down. But at the moment, the estimations are 12 months from today. Thank you.
Councillor McIver.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to just put on record my thanks to Councillor Matthews and Councillor Balcombe, who I think are doing a sterling job with communication on some of the Council's recent developments, Waste and Qualis, and I think the communication is something we've been really trying to battle with, and I really see it turning a corner. I have two questions. The first question is related to planning. In Ongar, we have a site near the Four Wants, which has a very, very serious access issue. It has caused a number of my residents significant concern, particularly causing a petition which has had hundreds of signatures in just a few days. It involves a bus stop and lay-by being moved and having a bus just stop in the road opposite a very busy junction. Can the council please take a look at this in practical terms? I appreciate local plan is done and dusted, but minor technicalities like this are important. And could I have a commitment from the council to really look at this? That's my first question.
Who'd like to take that? Councillor Bedford.
Thank you. Thanks to Councillor McIver. As you know, a former councillor, Shelley, where I was responsible for that area, just the other side of the Four Wants roundabout. I have to say at this point, it's not for us to decide on the outcome of that roundabout or the facilities along that road. It's for officers to talk to the officers at Essex County Council, and I would suggest you as a county councillor should make that representation through Essex County Council. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Brooks.
Thank you very much. My question is actually to the contracts, Councillor Bolcom. Yeah, thank you. You won't be surprised to know that, as well as thinking I've got to get training for that great race with Councillor Whitbread when we open that pool, I'm very much aware, and some of you would have probably heard the article that was on the radio yesterday. Swim England did a big survey of the number of children in the 23-24 academic year in Year 7 going into secondary school able to swim. It's a mere 25 metres. And it was only 70%. And when they did the same survey in 2017 to 2018, 6% more children could swim 25 metres. Now, I won't go into the reasons for it, but I am just extraordinarily keen that our great swimming pool, when we open it, should be available to everyone. There's some fantastic work going on in Loughton Leisure Centre. Recently, we have set up something with a charity called Level Water, which is a charity which helps children with disabilities to swim. And they've now got several children, and they swim at the same price, but it's subsidised by the charity. And I'm very, very keen that we do this in Epping, and also that we already reach out to our Ivy Chimneys, St John's, and the Epping Primary, and as many as possible. Because, as we know, there are many reasons why primary schools aren't taking the children to swim, but I'm keen that we do it sooner rather than later, because we're going to have such a great facility and it would be criminal to have it underused.
Councillor Belcom.
Thank you, Councillor Brooke. Yes, I totally agree with you on that. It is on the agenda for the next place meeting, which I know you'll be attending with me. You're right, the new facility over there in the last few weeks, it's just amazing the difference there is. It actually looks like a building now and feels like there's something there. And as you know, when we went round a few weeks ago, there was actually water in the swimming pool that she wouldn't get in. So yes, I have that on the agenda. It's something we're going to be talking about with officers, and we're talking about at the next meeting.
Councillor Bromwich.
Thank you, Chair. And first of all, thank you to you and the Vice Chair for your tremendous work with the Thornwood event happening. I very much look forward to attending. My question is to Councillor Matthews. You're very popular this evening. But first of all, I would like to begin by paying tribute to a member of our community, Arthur Morton, who was a friend and a titan within North Weald, Bassett, who sadly died earlier this month. He was a resident since 1961. His legacy is woven into the very fabric of our community, and his dedication to it was critical in the proposal and eventual construction of our Debt of Honour, the rollout of the Hurricane magazine, and above all, he was the fiercest champion of North Weald Airfield, its history and its survival in the future. He was a man of service to his country and to our community. Both North Weald and our district are better because of people like Arthur Morton. As I said, this is a question for the portfolio holder responsible for Qualis Property Solutions, Councillor Matthews. In January, on the coldest day of the year, I was contacted by an elderly couple in their 80s whose boiler had failed in their Qualis maintained property in North Weald. Now, desperate for help, they called the Qualis emergency line 14 times before reaching out to me. When I took over on their behalf, I spent 2.5 hours just trying to speak to someone who, to their great credit, eventually managed to have a boiler replaced within 3 hours of me reporting it. And then just days later, I was contacted by another resident in one of our sheltered accommodation facilities in North Weald. Now, she's been battling leaks and worsening mould in a room that she shares with her 2 children with severe asthma. When I called Qualis to see what could be done, I was informed that the issue couldn't be addressed for over a month. So could Councillor Matthews please outline what capacity building measures are being implemented within the Qualis Property Solutions emergency repairs team, and does this represent good value for money for people living in North Weald Bassett and across our district? Thank you very much.
Councillor Matthews.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Bromwich, and it's obviously very troubling to hear stories like this when we do hear of them in the district. Absolutely no excuse for this to be happening. Obviously, I'm not aware of the situation until you've kindly shared with us this evening, so I'll take that away and ensure that there's a full report generated on that so we understand why that's happened and to ensure that it's not happened before. I know we've been looking at improved satisfaction rates and there's some good stories that are coming with that, but it's not acceptable in this case to happen once, so I'd like to be hitting 100% satisfaction, so I will ensure that I come back to you with a report on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bedford.
Thank you. Additional to that, Councillor Bromwich, I'd like to say that I know that you were working very hard on that particular project when the person phoned up about that, and I think that was the day that we ended up with 3 or 4 jobs coming in between us, and you picked that one, you were dealing with that, and I was dealing with something else as well at the same time. Thank you for picking that one up. I know that it was quite a difficult process to get through, but with regards to the second part of your mention there, if you could send me the details of that, I will obviously forward that on to Sergeant to ask for a response, a written response to yourself. Thank you.
Councillor Holly Whitbread.
Thank you. If I could just come in on that point, just if councillors are not aware, there's a lady at Qualis called Debbie Casey who deals with members' inquiries for housing issues. She's always brilliant. I emailed her today. I got a reply in literally 2 minutes flat. So just I'll pass you on that email, Councillor Bromwich, because she's very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Murray, you get a second turn.
Second question, Chairman, if there was time, thank you. And it is important for future development in Loughton, and again, it's for Qualis. I'm not happy with the 2 names that are floating around in Epping as regards Qualis developments, Gardenier Court and Verdant Place, commercially driven names that have no connection with the town. So as a Loughton councillor, I want to have an assurance that if Qualis ever get round to developing something in Loughton, because I know Pearls Lane is on hold and we've heard about the middle of the town tonight, if Qualis ever get round to doing something in Loughton, can there please be proper consultation with the local community and the parish council so that we can have names that people can identify with and have some resonance with the local community, not just commercially driven names.
Thank you very much. Councillor Whitehouse. Excuse me, Councillor Whitehouse. I'll take Councillor Murray first. Councillor Matthews.
There we go. Sorry, thank you. Very simple answer, and it's a big yes. I have raised this, and I know it is an issue in Epping, and I know the Town Council have raised questions about this, and that's been addressed to me, and I absolutely fully support these developments. I don't support at all the sort of commercial name. It's unfortunate that with Verdant Place, we're obviously in the position where marketing has happened, advertising has happened, so there is an option to change that name, but I take Councillor Murray's point and I wholeheartedly support it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor Janet Whitehouse.
Chairman, I was just going to add to Councillor Murray's query that the Town Council was taking it up and had raised it, but Mr. Councillor Matthews has really said what I was going to say.
Thank you. Councillor McIver, second question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for allowing the second question. This is a question, I think it's probably for the Cabinet Member for Finance, but any member of the Cabinet is welcome, obviously, to take the question. Financial hardship is something that many of our residents have to deal with, some with no notice, some completely out of their control. And many of our residents, of course, look at their bills as they go up and up with such concern. It is a concern for me that recently I was unable to attend a county council meeting and smears were made that it was because I was in council tax arrears. I think it is unacceptable for anybody to face criticism of financial hardship if that is the case. It is an insult to people and it is a very sensitive subject. It was not true in my case, I'm pleased to assure the Chamber, but could the Cabinet Member please commit to ensuring that never can financial hardship be used to smear a member of this chamber, or indeed any resident, because many of our residents are up against it, and it is so upsetting for them. And I appreciate it may not have been deliberate to cause upset, but it's certainly not something that I think any member of this chamber should have to deal with.
Councillor Chris Whitbread.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, County Council matters to this chamber unless they relate to the council. They do not. So I don't know what Councillor McIver is talking about, but this council always stands on the side of people who are in hardship.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Whitehouse. Any other questions? Councillor Ponder.
Sorry, Chairman. This is a question for the leader, and I wonder whether he would care to make a statement on the government's imposition of extra housing to be delivered by EFDC, which is almost, not quite, a factor of 2. I think that will have a big effect on this council and its plans, and it will be quite relevant to the points which were being made at the Duke of Gloucester's visit at the Lopping Hall last week.
Councillor Chris Whitbread.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Councillor Pond, for a really good question, something that really matters to this district. We struggled with our local plan. It took 12 years to get a local plan in place, and the numbers in that local plan, 11,300, were really difficult. Every site had somebody who disliked it. You know, it's an impossible situation. The government have just made things a whole lot worse. For a council that has really done its best to deliver, when you have a forest to think about, the green belt, it's really, really difficult what the government have now done to us. But the good news is we do have a local plan. We have got sites within that local plan that are deliverable. We have got the Harlow Garden Town project. So as a council, we are doing our best to meet our current local plan, and hopefully that will hold us in better stead as things progress. But we saw last night at planning the pressures that the new MPPF brings upon us, and on top of the extra numbers, it's a really difficult time. Isn't it funny how this government has focused on areas like ours and avoided the cities and areas that they class as Labour territory?
Thank you very much, Councillor. Now, it's been drawn to my... go on then, Councillor Tim Matthews.
Sorry, Chairman, if I could just come back to an answer to an earlier question, if I may. Thankfully, due to the beauty of technology, I've been able to get an answer to Councillor Pond's question in regards to the store he mentioned in Loughton. I can confirm that they've been paying their rent in full, they've been complying with all aspects of their lease, and they are due to be reopening in April. So I like to strike while the iron's hot, and I wanted to know if that was an issue or not there, so I managed to get that information for you.
Thank you very much for that. May I now just ask, I've got 3 councillors who have arrived late. That's Councillor Rackham, Councillor Morgan and Councillor Sue Jones. Have you any declarations?
No declarations, Chairman.
No declarations and apologies for the tardiness.
And while she's here, Councillor Georgia. Councillor Georgia, who's just arrived.
Hi, Chairman. Sorry for my tardiness. No declarations.
Accepted. Thank you. Right, we're finished with that one. So, item 10 now, which is Members' Allowances Scheme. You can find this on page 37 to 64. May I ask Mr. Stephen Lai to present the panel's recommendations, please?
Thank you, Chairman. An easy presentation this year, no change, as you will have seen from the documentation. I'm really here to answer any queries or questions that members might have. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, do you have any questions or comments? Councillor Murray.
Chairman, I've read this report very carefully, and as I've said earlier, Mr. Lai is a good friend of mine. I don't normally agree with the phrase no change, must admit being a bit of a radical, but on this occasion I'm quite happy with no change. I would just draw, particularly bearing in mind some comments that I do read in social media about EFDC councillors, I would just like to draw three things to people's explicit attention. One, this is an independent panel, and on page 39 we are reminded that the basic allowance, which is the allowance that is paid to all councillors as being a ward councillor, is the lowest of the comparative authorities, and from memory that's across about 15 different authorities. We are the lowest, and we are the second lowest in Essex. I think it was worth making that explicitly clear tonight.
Any other questions? Councillor Chris Whitbread.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. And not really so much a question as a thank you to Mr. Lai and his committee for reviewing again this year, and we really do appreciate it, and we appreciate the outcome of the report. And I thank Councillor Murray for his comments because he's done my job for me.
Thank you very much. Right, no other members have questions? Members, we have on page 37 of our agenda 6 recommendations, which I would like to take all together. May I have your approval for those recommendations? Thank you. Right, members, item 11 on our agenda is the pay policy statement. May I ask Councillor Shmurti Patel to present the report? Chris Whitbread.
Chairman, you could, but Councillor Patel is not with us this evening, so it falls to me to present this paper. It is very clearly set out within the report and has gone to Cabinet previously, and the couple of points that were picked up at Cabinet regards to TBS and Qualis are covered under the third recommendation in this report, and I commend it to members.
Thank you. Right. Councillor Murray.
Yeah, I'm sorry to speak again, Chairman, but this is the only part of the meeting I felt I could bring this up. Again, I read that very carefully today. I've allocated quite a few hours today on this agenda. Agree with everything. And when I read it, what it reminded me was how important our staff are at EFDC. It is the staff that are delivering the services day in, day out. And the reason I wanted to make that point was I did just want to stand up tonight and acknowledge, and I'm sure there'll be total agreement for this, is that we have a member of staff who's retiring very soon. In fact, he's got his retirement due on Friday. I don't know when his retirement date is, and it's someone who has served this council and this community for 33 years, and that's Phil Hawkins. And I hope he doesn't mind me mentioning him in public. I haven't asked his permission, I have to say, but I'm only going to say nice things. Phil has served this council for 33 years. He was in charge of the grounds maintenance DLO, and he has successfully been the client manager side of the Qualis relationship since the changeover. So I certainly wanted to say a public thank you to Phil Hawkins. It's dedicated people like that who serve our community for the length of time he has here in EFDC that actually gets the job done. So well done, Phil.
Thank you very much. Councillor Chris Whitbread.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I'm sure Councillor Murray's comments will make their way into the minutes of this meeting. Yes, of course, we should all be congratulating Phil Hawkins and his service to the council. And as Councillor Murray says, this council is made up of so many great people who bring in our staff, who bring so much to our community, whether it's in the civic offices or out and about, doing the grounds maintenance, doing all the other works that happen. And of course that goes across our family of companies as well, including TVS and Qualis, and TVS in particular with their 99.8% collection rate and really delivering for Epping Forest. So I think we should, tonight actually, it is a case of we should be very proud of our staff. I know it will come up later in the budget, it always does, but we have first-class people working for this council. And we should never forget it, and we should never forget what they deliver on behalf of our residents.
Thank you. Members, the recommendation is to approve the pay policy. Do you approve? Thank you so much. Next is item 12 of our agenda. It is the local tax support scheme. May I ask Councillor Holly Whitbread to present the report?
Thank you, Chairman. In this report tonight, the Council was asked to approve the local council tax support scheme, which will remain unchanged for this year. This is a scheme that means pensioners will continue to receive the same level of financial assistance, and also those of working age. And actually, in light of the last question, it's really important to highlight when people do need support to pay their council tax and have financial issues, there is support out there, and it is really important people receive that support and don't get to the stage where court action or legal action has to be taken. Equally, as councillors, it's very important that we are transparent and make proper declarations, past and present. The total cost of this is £7 million. This is shared by all precepting authorities, and this scheme has been in place since 2013, replacing the previous scheme, and it's widely agreed that this is a more efficient system. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
I ask members if they can approve. Thank you.
Members, do you have any questions or comments, please? Okay. Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Members, we have one recommendation on page 71 of our agenda, that the Council approves the local council tax support scheme from 2024 to 25, continue unchanged for 2025/26. May I have your approval for this recommendation? Thank you very much. Item 13 on our agenda is the review of council tax empty and second home schemes. May I ask Councillor Holly Whitbread to present the report? Thank
you, Chairman. This is a report which has had much scrutiny, both by scrutiny and by Cabinet. I'd particularly like to thank Peter Freeman, who's the officer responsible for putting this report together. He's had many, many questions, and I am grateful for his expertise on this issue. So this evening I'm asking Council to approve the implementation of a new policy that will introduce council tax premiums on second and empty homes. You'll see the three recommendations set out in the report. As I've said in previous meetings, this is not something that naturally sits comfortably with me, but on balance I think the Cabinet agreed, and actually scrutiny tended to agree, that it was the right step. It will bring us in line with other Essex councils, generate income and free up much needed housing across our district. I hope members are able to support the recommendations within this report this evening. Thank you.
Members, do you have any comments or questions? Oh. Councillor Kaufman.
Thank you, Chair. I hadn't intended to speak, but I thought I might as well. This report, I think, is a little bit deficient. I understand the aim, but it needs to have some substance behind it. So how many second homes are there in our district? How many empty houses are there? What revenue will this bring in? What will it cost us to bring that revenue in? It would be helpful. I'm not saying we shouldn't do it or we should do it, but I think we need more facts than just punish, punish, punish without substance behind it. I'm not after an answer tonight, and I don't know quite where it should go. There are reasons why people do occasionally have empty homes. We do need a thriving tourist economy. There are people who rent houses out on Airbnb. We want people to come in the district, don't want to punish them if people are trying to do good work. So this is a bit sledgehammer-like, unless we have some idea of the scale of the money it will bring in. Thank you.
Councillor Singer first, I'm afraid. Oh, go on then, Councillor Holly.
Thank you, Chairman, and I'm very happy for Councillor Sunga to come in. I do believe there was a lot more detail and more figures within the ONS report, but happy to provide a response to you later with those details. And as I say, it doesn't quite sit comfortably with me, and we had quite a good debate at Cabinet around this issue. I think, as I said, it's an on-balance decision, and that's why we're taking it this evening. I'm happy to refer to Councillor Sunga.
Councillor Sunga.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I just come in and say that we have a housing crisis at the moment, and we've got a situation where there are a lot of people waiting to move into property. I really welcome this report. I think Councillor Holly-Whitbread is actually absolutely correct in saying we want to encourage responsible homeowners to take responsibility and not to allow a house to go into disrepair. If you see some of the houses that are left empty, they become a bit of an eyesore for the rest of the residents down that road or the street. So I think using this initiative is to actually encourage them to bring the house back into use so that a family could actually take the advantage of living in there. So yeah, I totally agree with the Cabinet Portfolio Holder's report here. And perhaps if the portfolio holder can actually just confirm that this particular policy is going to be implemented 2025, and then there's another one scaling to 2026. If you can just confirm if that's correct.
Thank you, Chairman. As Councillor Sunga quite rightly says, it's a phased implementation as outlined in the report. Thank you.
Anyone else, any comments? No, right. Members, the recommendations are to approve the review of the council tax empty and second home scheme. Members, have I your approval? Thank you very much. Right, item 14 on our agenda is the final draft budget proposal, which can be found on pages 84 to 154 on your agenda. May I ask Councillor Holly Whitbread to present the proposal?
Thank you, Chairman. This evening I present Epping Forest District Council's budget for 2025 and 2026. A budget that's designed to balance the books while delivering the best possible value for local taxpayers. In the face of ever-evolving challenges, the Council's commitment to financial responsibility remains unwavering. This budget has undergone rigorous scrutiny with positive engagement from across the Chamber, which we all welcome, ensuring the best possible outcome for this Council and the people we serve during these tough economic times. This year, I've observed very lively online discussions around the budget. Interest and engagement in this important process is always welcome. In this commentary, one councillor has repeatedly questioned my qualifications to deliver this budget. I would like to say that unlike our Chancellor, nationally, I should say, not in Essex, I'm entirely transparent about my CV. Like most of my predecessors in this role, I'm neither an accountant or an economist. The same councillor also questioned how I'm managing to balance the books. Let me put her mind at ease. There is no great conspiracy. The reality is really simple. No councillor balances the books alone. As Councillor Murray quite rightly said, running a council is a team effort. We have an exceptional team of finance officers who work under the strategic direction of the Cabinet and the wider council to ensure the council remains on a firm financial footing. And I want to take this opportunity to personally thank Andrew Small, Chris Hartgrove and the entire finance team for their diligence and expertise. Indeed, the work of officers across all service areas has been vital in charting a sustainable path forward. Despite statements made from disgruntled armchair auditors, I assure you that every detail of our budget is publicly available and accessible, as all public expenditure should and must be. The finance team and I welcome questions and welcome scrutiny. Indeed, both internal and external scrutiny has been crucial in forming this year's budget. As the new Cabinet Member for Finance, I've continued last year's collaborative approach, ensuring transparency and where possible, avoiding any surprises. I'm really grateful for the Overview and Scrutiny Committee for their fantastic engagement, ably chaired by Councillor Baldwin, and councillors from across the chamber for their input, with a few notable exceptions. I hope members will agree that this engagement has been constructive, with valuable suggestions made which has formed this final budget here today. So before I get into the detail of the budget, and do excuse the length of this speech, but I think it's important for public transparency that we look at the budget in detail, I'm going to place the budget in some context. Only 13% of our budget comes from council tax. The majority of our budget relies on grants, income generation from sources such as the Epping Forest Shopping Park, but also from some of the commercial premises which Qualis have done a good job of increasing rents on, as well as the interest payments from Qualis, which are very important in underpinning our budget. However, this year's financial landscape is particularly challenging due to reduced government grants under the new Labour government, which have been redistributed elsewhere in the country. Members will be aware that we were really pleased to secure £88 million for the sale of a small part of Northfield Airfield to Google. This brings in jobs to our district and is great news for the local economy. But let me be absolutely clear, this money has not been spent. It is sitting in our accounts. The money is strictly reserved for capital projects. We can't spend it elsewhere, with no major plans for allocations in the next year. However, the interest generated from these funds is underpinning our budget and is absolutely vital in the budget, meaning we haven't had to make quite as many difficult savings as we may have had to otherwise. So I'm going to quickly touch on value for money. While we collect all council tax, we only keep 7.8% of it. This is a really important point to make. So a Band D taxpayer pays around £172 a year for all EFDC services. This is £3.30 a week, about the price of a Happy Meal, actually slightly cheaper than a Happy Meal. And this includes a modest increase of 2.99% this year, less than the rate of inflation. I'm pleased to say that despite this rise, we still have the lowest council tax in Essex. When times were better, we always did what we could to keep council tax as low as possible, because although it may be pennies, pennies are important to people. Despite accounting for only a small proportion of people's council tax, we do a great deal. From waste collection to environmental health, to planning services, to leisure centres, homelessness support, community engagement for all ages. And we don't just provide those vital statutory services, we do so much more. Our brilliant youth counsellors, our highways rangers, and our guiding principle always stays keeping tax low while protecting those vital services. So on to the more detailed part of the budget. Our medium-term financial plan initially revealed a £1 million deficit, with £276,000 for the housing revenue account. And key challenges include a lower than expected government grant, as I've already highlighted, rising operational costs, including utilities and contracted services, national policy changes, such as the increase in national insurance contributions, inflationary pressures on supplies, services and housing. To say in short, it's been a really tough time. A significant point of debate on this budget in particular has been the Cottage Lane car park, which is being transferred back to EFDC from Qualis. Let me be clear, there is no budget without including the car park. Our Section 151 officer has made it clear excluding the car park would only defer financial challenges to the future, and he would not sign off any budget without its inclusion. With financial responsibility in mind, we have also followed the Section 151 officer's recommendation to keep £4 million of reserves, because we are doing what a responsible council should do. So on to the savings and difficult decisions. So, as I said, we've increased council tax by 2.99%. However, we've still had to make many difficult decisions in terms of savings, 1.3 million in total. And I have to say, the most regrettable of those savings, particularly for me, is the cut of our in-house policing service. People will probably remember a few years back, I was probably the biggest advocate of our in-house policing service. And don't get me wrong, they do fantastic work. During the pandemic, they were particularly important when people were breaking COVID rules or whether there was antisocial behaviour. They were doing fantastic responsive work. And I don't think we should ever diminish the value that they gave to our community. But sadly, times have changed in terms of council finances. It should also be said that Essex Police are, in theory, at the highest level of police officers ever on the street, in numbers, whether the reality feels the same. But many do feel that having police officers funded by the District Council is a type of double taxation. We already pay 12% of our overall council tax to the Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner, specifically for policing. And it should be said that this difficult decision was reluctantly supported by scrutiny. But I would also like to highlight that our community safety and resilience team will continue working closely with Essex Police to tackle crime and antisocial behaviour in the district. Where possible in this budget, we've prioritised on minimising job losses within our organisation. Reorganising the strained workforces is really important, particularly in light of local government transformation, where we're going to need as much support on the ground as possible as we go through this difficult stage. And what we've looked to do is move some of the transformation revenue reserve around in order to facilitate this. Following feedback from overview and scrutiny, we took decisive action and actually had the good news of a slight underspend for 1 year on ICT, which meant that we could facilitate for 1 year the grants of Citizens Advice Bureau, Voluntary Action Epping Forest Community Transport. I particularly want to thank Citizens Advice for their advocacy and their invaluable support in our community. I think people don't often recognise the great work they do, which minimises the impact on our general fund, supporting people with financial advice and homelessness support. And it is important to recognise this. And the Citizens Advice team did a fantastic job coming to the scrutiny meeting and really arguing their case. And it was clear when listening to the case studies of members what a wonderful job Citizens Advice do, but also voluntary action, particularly with some of their at-home help for older people, and Epping Forest Community Transport, which Councillor Lee strongly advocated for, who do a fantastic job in Waltham Abbey, but also some of our more rural communities as well. So now moving on to the capital programme. And actually this is where we look at some of the really exciting projects that this council is doing. So there's £51 million for the next, from 2025 to 2030. And part of this is the fantastic new Epping Leisure Centre, which I have to say, as a ward councillor, something I've been fighting for many years. It's really brilliant to see it really coming up, and it looks fantastic. And actually, I visited Councillor Brooks with Epping Primary last year, and they are very excited, and I'm sure even more so now as it increases in size and is soon to open in the autumn. Also included in the capital project is the Air Traffic Control Tower, which will keep Northfield Airfield flying, something this council has always been committed to. I will briefly touch on the housing revenue account, which is really important. It's important to highlight that this council actually maintains its own council properties, something that we've been very proud of, but does come at a cost. So unfortunately this year there is a small deficit within the HRA of 277,000, which will be covered by HRA surpluses. This allows continued investment in our important housing stock while managing pressures such as pay awards and inflationary increases. Also 200,000 has been allocated to a stock condition survey. This means when we are renovating and improving properties, the worst properties get the attention they need first. The HRA, as I discussed many times when in the role, has a significant capital programme of 143 million over 5 years. And this is good because it means we are improving council homes, but unlike many councils across the country, while at a slower pace, still building them. So looking ahead, the medium-term financial plan highlights significant challenges. There's uncertainty around government grants. We might expect more of the same next year, business rate resets and potential local government reform. Although local government reform does represent a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to streamline services and make local government more efficient across Essex, hopefully providing better value for residents. So to conclude, setting a budget in the current economic climate is an incredibly difficult task. Protecting one service often comes at the expense of another. And while I've always liked the idea, and I was rather jealous of Councillor Phillip always pulling that rabbit out of the hat, unfortunately this year we haven't been able to perform any magic tricks. However, I believe this budget strikes the right balance. It keeps tax low, protects core services and remains financially responsible. Having served as a councillor for almost a decade, I know that local government is never perfect and new challenges always arise. Our responsibility is to make the best possible decisions for local people based on fact and reality. I urge members this evening to pragmatically support this budget because it's the right budget for now. It's a difficult budget, but it does the job. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Members, can you have any comments? And I see Councillor Murray's name is up.
It's not going to be that short, sorry, Chairman. I'll be supporting the budget, and can I congratulate the finance portfolio holder on her speech. Apart from the kind of few political point scoring that you would expect from any councillor that's elected under a political label, I thought it was an excellent speech, and I would agree with all of it, apart from those kind of political points. You won't get any of those from an independent councillor. So I'll be proudly independent. So I'll be supporting the budget, Chairman, but please do not take my yes vote to mean that I support every aspect of the budget and every item of expenditure within the budget. Because I think if you drill down, there are probably still some things that I wouldn't be happy about. My third point is that I do still have some considerable difficulty about Cottage Lane car park. We've had it explained at the meetings I've attended, we've had it explained again tonight, but I still have some difficulty about the late movement of that £978,000. Because to me, as a simple person, it seemed to be, at this stage, to the benefit of Qualis, but to the detriment of this particular budget setting for EFDC. Absolutely delighted that we have safeguarded the three organisations that have been referenced tonight. I won't add very much to that, apart from the Citizens Advice Bureau in their latest post on the 11th of February. In the last 9 months, they've helped more than 2,000 people, supporting them with 5,500 issues, and have achieved about 1.1 million in financial outcomes for those individuals. I'm tempted to say perhaps I should go for some advice, but seriously, they've done a really good job. And I am committed to BAEF as well. I've seen many of their schemes in action, and I'm really pleased that we have safeguarded them this year. And I have to stand here again tonight and say that, along with others, I will do my best to safeguard them in future budgets. But let's be blunt, the safeguarding isn't as wonderful as it might be, because they haven't had an inflationary increase in their grant for many, many years. But, you know, I'm not going to be churlish. I welcome what we've achieved. I also wanted to say something about the police. I was quite a late convert to EFDC EFDC funding of the police, because I felt that it was double accounting. I felt that we were paying for something twice. But I was won over because I saw the tasks that we were able to give them that wouldn't have been done. But given where we are now, if people want to look for any evidence for why now is the right time, because we are really up against the buffers, you only have to look at page 156 of the council agenda tonight, which of course is item 15, but the information is relevant to this point. The Band D EFDC council tax for all our services is just over, or just under £172, while the Essex Police is £260. So that to me means that we are right today not to fund those police officers. We're paying far more for the single service of Essex Police than we are for the whole of our services in the EFDC. As a former housing portfolio holder in better days, I also took a very, very close interest in the housing revenue account. In fact, that's the first one I always look at. And I am pleased, well, I'm not pleased that there's a rent increase of 2.7, but I do understand the need for it. But I am pleased that it is lower than the anticipated rent increase of 3.5%, which looked as if it was the case in an earlier look at the budget. As the portfolio holder has said, and I won't go into detail, but I will just reference again the HRA, 3.5 million on planned maintenance. And if you look at the capital, we have got 5 years of, I think it's £20 million per year on windows, doors, roofing, new kitchens and bathrooms, which is obviously a significant investment in our existing stock. So in conclusion, Chairman, I will be supporting the budget. Doesn't mean that I support absolutely every aspect of it, and I will be looking to safeguard the three organisations in future budgets. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Janet Whitehouse.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Whitbread mentioned that money was found to give to the voluntary organisations, and I was very pleased when that happened, because without it I would have found it quite difficult to support the budget this evening. When the draft budget was published, I was shocked to see that Voluntary Action Epping Forest received £0. I feel I can refer to that now because it's in the public domain, but not from me. From comments that have been made, it seems that those who allocate the grants are not supportive of voluntary action because it delivers services rather than being a facilitator, which is what it seems councils of voluntary service should be doing. But I can't see what's wrong if services are delivered directly if nobody else is doing it. I won't list all the services that they do, but to pick out two, the handyman service, handy person service, does a variety of jobs for homeowners who are elderly or disabled. And I'm sure that helps many to remain in their homes independently for longer than perhaps they otherwise would, knowing that that help is there. A lot of key safes are provided, safety rails, lots of do-it-yourself jobs. But the one that's most asked for, small job, is fitting light bulbs, which was a surprise to me. The other one is, that I think is so important, is the ACE service for people with learning difficulties. Those students follow an accredited course to help them to gain skills so they become more self-reliant and independent, and some even get the stage of being able to apply for employment, and one recently has been applying for a job in cleaning or gardening. That is a tremendous achievement. I'm glad that my appeals on behalf of BAF, supported by other members, did result in the grant of £30,000 being given again for the coming year, but I am very concerned about what will happen next year. I think I should probably, Chairman, have declared an interest in VAEF because, especially when I was involved with Epping Forest Reuse, I went to a lot of their events, particularly the networking events, and I have in the past used the handyman service, so I can say from personal experience how valuable that is for older people. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Holly Whitbread.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you to Councillor Whitehouse for her comments and also the useful information she shared around voluntary action, Epping Forest. I did share in the scrutiny committee, and I won't go into full details within this meeting, some of the challenges around communication there have been with VAF. But what I would propose, and I didn't quite put it in my speech because otherwise it would have been even longer, but I think we need to have conversations at a very early stage with VAF moving forward. As yourself and Councillor Murray quite rightly highlighted, a positive movement in the IT meant that we could guarantee this for a year, but there is no guarantee for next year. But it's really important that we find a way to make sure the services continue to be delivered. You quite rightly say that voluntary action Epping Forest do the job, and I do agree. A lot of the funding they were getting both from us within the service level agreement and from Essex County Council was as a CVS, which is a community voluntary service, which is about enabling and supporting other charities. That being said, I do recognise the comments made about their proactive work in the community. And yes, we're going to continue to have budget challenges as the medium-term predictions show. And also, we're going to be moving into a completely different model of local government. So I think probably now is the time to sit around with organisations like VAF and CAB to work out how we can make it sustainable for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Baldwin.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, so I'd like to say that I think it was a very, very good thing that we had a in-depth discussion when scrutiny came together with Cabinet. We had a very detailed discussion about some of the things in the budget, and it was a good opportunity to thrash out where, because it was a very difficult budget this year because we're under a statutory obligation to balance the budget. And I think we had some very, very fruitful discussions, and hopefully that will be reflected here tonight when we come to vote on the budget. I was very, very pleased, and I echo what Councillor Murray said, that we were able to maintain the funding for the 3 charities, at least for this year. And so I echo those points. I did have one specific question, and that was regarding the capital amount that we received from the sale of the land to Google, which has been touted quite often. I know it's £80 million, and that the interest from that has become an important source of revenue. But what I'm slightly worried about is because if the interest rate from that is taken as revenue to the council, surely we are eroding the capital value of that 80 million. I think that's a fairly sort of simplistic point I'm making. And so it just kind of worries me how long that we can carry on like this, just basically using the interest as revenue. And I'd be worried about the erosion of the capital amount. So that's my specific question. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Holly Whitbread.
Thank you, Chairman, and can I again thank Councillor Baldwin for his collaboration through overview and scrutiny and chairing those very long meetings, but very grateful for the engagement there. And I think you make a really good point on Google. We can't just continue living off the interest, and at some point we're going to have to spend the money. We've got a huge amount of money for investing in the future of Epping Forest. And we can't just let that go. So it is a question that we're very conscious of. Obviously, we face very big challenges, which is why we've kind of gone to the position of using the interest. That should be said, there is a small amount being spent on the air control tower. Some of the works around that, I think it's about 800,000 overall. So when the right projects come up, that is something that we will ensure the money is spent on. But obviously, we also want to be strategic in how we use that money. We don't want to just kind of spend it anywhere. It's got to be spent on the right things. But I do take your comment, and I know that officers and members of the Cabinet are very conscious of that. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much. I think Councillor Riskin was first.
Thank you, Chairman. In light of the comments about collaboration, could the leader please give us assurance that if there was a thumping surplus on the books, there would be mutual collaboration going forward?
Councillor Whitbread, Chris.
Thank you, Chairman. And wouldn't it be lovely to have a massive surplus on the books? I'd be quite happy. But we have always done, and actually what's happened in the past couple of years is more effective collaboration, I would say, because it's always been part of the budget process. That the first draft of the budget goes to Cabinet, then it went to overview and scrutiny, and it was normally both back in the day, and I think it's probably only Councillor Murray and Councillor Morgan and myself who remember back in the day now when we had 3 scrutiny panels, that used to go to overview and scrutiny free, or the others were all invited alongside the Cabinet, and it would go through that process. What we've actually found over the past couple of years is a much more effective way to do it. And this year in particular, we actually went for a second bite because it was such a difficult to budget to deliver. And I'm sure my finance portfolio holder and daughter will be going on at me about giving her the toughest job in the Cabinet for this year with the finances the way they are. I was going to speak on the budget, and I'll just say a few words because I think it's been really well covered. And I know we were all pleased that we were able to continue to support CAB, which I think would always be my first choice support place, if I'm honest, while you can do it. I think other areas need to be explored for the future. But I'm going to put a warning note on what we're doing here. There's several things we need to be really focused on. We've set a budget and medium-term strategy, and we need to keep our eye on the ball. It is going to be very easy over coming months and probably years as LGR rumbles forward to take the eye off the ball. The most important thing we have to do is continue to deliver services here in Epping Forest during that time. Major changes coming. There's nothing we can do to stop it. We've got a government in Westminster with a massive majority, and all councils are having to look at changing the way they work and move towards a unitary system. That's just the way of the world. And the important thing is here in Epping Forest, we want to be part of the team that's shaping it, not someone who has it done to them, because I want to make sure that we end up with a strong voice for Epping Forest, whichever way it goes. But the reason I say there is 2 risks. The risk is taking your eye off the ball for the future and making sure we continue to deliver what we say here in Epping Forest over the next few years. The other risk is what was written in that budget back in October, because that really is dangerous for us. It's affected everybody from pensioners, farmers, and the man in the street to small businesses who are now having to face more national insurance money to be paid out from April. It's a really difficult time, but more than that for local government is the way that grants have been operated in the future. And the redistribution of those grants is dangerous for places like us here in Epping Forest. We saw it in the late 90s, 98 through to mid-2000s, where we talked about floors and ceilings the whole time. But we were always in the wrong place. And we always saw our grants going north or to the cities, and we always found it harder and harder. So my warning is, this year's budget was hard, and we've got through it from some brilliant work from officers, our finance team, our finance portfolio holder, all the Cabinet, all the members on overview and scrutiny. Everyone played a part. But my warning to you is 26-27 will be even harder. And I don't like to be doom and gloom. Everyone knows I like to keep a smile when I'm talking about money. But we have hard times ahead of us, and this government is not going to deliver a good future for hard-working people across Epping Forest at the moment. We have a lot to do. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor John Whitehouse.
Thanks, Chairman. Yes, I mean, every budget has its complications, but I think this year there have been more moving parts than most budgets we've been through, and not helped by the number of late changes. And thank goodness for producer responsibility levy, in terms of at least that's one source of a bit of extra income. And the overview and scrutiny process has been helpful. I'd like to thank everyone involved in the budget process, particularly including the bit of public participation with the Citizens Advice Bureau, and there's potential to expand that in the future. I won't try and cover everything in the budget document. Clearly there's an awful lot in there, but I think there are some themes that it's worth bringing out. And one of them is the impact of the differences the council experienced between what we expected to spend and what we've actually had to end up spending. Whether that's on the waste service, whether it's a Cottage Lane car park, whether it's a housing repairs service. And some of those are unavoidable cost increases, inflation that went beyond expectations. Some possibly should have been a bit more anticipated and kept an eye on. Some perhaps was a bit of optimism in terms of what might be possible in terms of delivering savings or similar. And some it's a consequence of decisions which have then rolled on. Thinking of some of the decisions made in the early days of Qualis when perhaps it was not in listening mode, and we've had to live with the consequences of that with things like the Cottage Lane car park deficit. I mean, we were particularly concerned, like Councillor Murray, by the impact of the Cottage Lane car park decision and the way it emerged so late. That's why we called in and looked at it through multiple angles, and I'm grateful for the help that Councillor George gave on that. And the alternative would have been a provision for some or all of that amount. We're not going to go as far as proposing that as an amendment this evening. I don't think that would have been particularly productive. But it has had an impact on key functions the council does. One of the unusual things about this budget is it does in the budget papers include an explicit commitment to try and avoid implementing some of the savings decisions that have been made or that we're being asked to make tonight, mainly through use of the Transformation Reserve. And I would ask that members are kept up to date with that process, with the use of that Transformation Reserve. I mean, where we are reducing hours, for example, in the planning service, these are hours that would be spent on things like making sure we've got, which will be affecting the design of some of the developments we've got coming, or travel issues or landscape issues, stuff that we would use to try and maximise or at least mitigate the impact of developments in the area. And as I say, I'd ask that members are kept up to date with that. And as we've heard, there are other areas where members did their research, they presented their case, the council listened, and that is a good thing. And I'm grateful and pleased that we've, again, for the second year running, managed to preserve some of the voluntary sector funding. So, yeah, it's been a really tricky budget. There are things in there that we'll need to keep a very close eye on to see what impact they actually have on the services and on the impact on residents, and also the impact on future years. But it's been a lot of hard work by a lot of people, and I appreciate that, and we'd like to thank people for that as well. Thanks, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Morgan. Excuse me, Councillor Holly. You want to answer?
Thank you, Chairman. And I don't intend to say too much, but to thank Councillor Whitehouse for his chairmanship of Audit and Governance, which plays a really important role in the council's budget process and making sure everything is transparent and out in the open and checked. Certainly we will keep you up to date in relation to those potential budget savings which might be mitigated through the Transformation Fund. I will not rehearse the arguments about the car park this evening unless necessary later. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Lisa Morgan.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I'd like to echo what Councillor Murray said, and I'm very proud Epping Forest Independent, so I do. And for that reason, I've had lots of our residents contact me in the past week or so about the Regus and the fact that we've given them 18 months free, if I finish here, the 18 months free rent. And if we hadn't, how would that have affected our budget? I mean, most people give, as a business person, I give sort of 3 months. To give 18 months, the residents do want an answer. I want to know why and how that has affected our budget, please.
Councillor Holly Whitbread.
Thank you, Chairman. And it's unfortunate that Councillor Morgan didn't turn up to any of the budget scrutiny meetings and didn't feed into the process at all. But what I would say is that it's a standard commercial term. I don't know if Councillor Matthews wants to add further, but what should be remembered is that by just renting out the top of this building, we're bringing in income for this council, which also underpins this budget. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Matthews?
Thank you. I think Councillor Whitbread covered the point perfectly. It's a sort of a common practice in commercial property of this size. It is relative to the size that is the key thing here. I know people have got different experience with commercial properties. Size relates to the scale of what's usually proposed. So yeah, I think we've been happy with that, and it's just another thing to remember what's underpinning, as been highlighted this evening, with the amount that is brought forward to the council through the tax collection. It's very obvious that it's so important, all the other sources of income, and we've mentioned nearly all of them this evening. So it's very important to factor in these things that are underpinning our budget. And if I may, Chair, while I've got the floor, I would just, from a personal perspective, as my first year as being a Cabinet member, it's been really, really positive being part of this budget process, and I'd really like to extend my thanks to all members that have contributed. I didn't want to name names, but I will particularly just mention three, if I may, in Councillor John Whitehouse, Councillor Janet Whitehouse and Councillor Murray, who have all asked me very challenging questions and ensured that I've really had the information to hand and needed, and particularly Janet Whitehouse in a very passionate delivery and recommendation to support the local charities. That really did change my opinion on the matter. I was firmly on the other side of the coin to start with, and I listened, and I was really moved by that. And also Councillor John Whitehouse, obviously exercising their constitutional right to call in a subject so we could have further scrutiny. Again, it was a new process for me as a new Cabinet member, but actually provided a lot of benefit for everyone to be able to, explain things even further. And I'm very grateful and welcoming this evening that must have been a successful meeting, as the decision's been made to no longer pursue that. So I'd just like to extend my thanks to all members that have participated. Thank you.
Councillor Morgan, I understand you want to come back.
Thank you very much. Yes, apologies that I couldn't get to in budget meetings, but I do have to work. But I would just like to say, because I haven't, can you confirm that they have agreed to a long-term lease on the back of the 18 months fee? Because obviously I wasn't there. Thank you very much.
Any confirmation, Polly?
Thank you, Chairman. There were several budget meetings in the evening, which you can attend online or in person. You can also read budget papers and ask questions to officers and Cabinet members, which is just a key point to highlight. On Regis, we'll put that in writing. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Now, Councillor George, I apologise for the wait.
Oh, put my mic on. So yeah, I'm a new councillor too. I was only voted in last year. So we did have a call in last week, as you know, for the Cottiers Lane car park, and it was absolutely great to sit there informally and chat instead of like we have now, question, answer, and waiting for your turn. But that's okay, I don't mind waiting. But it was really informative, and it was great to have that dialogue going, what's happening with it. But I still can't support it. I don't think it's the right way forward. Obviously, it's gone through. You're going to be voting on it tonight. That part of the budget, I can't. Even Councillor Holly Whitbread said that 3 policemen have had to go this year. So what's going to go next year? My glasses? My ring? So what is going to be coming out of the budget that has to provide for the transfer of Cottiers? Now, we're in it as I was voted in, and my belief that we're there for our residents and we're there to benefit our residents, and councils offer services. But what has been taken out and what has been done to balance the books does concern me going forward year after year until 29-30 that's in the budget. So other than that, yes, it is hard to balance a budget. I know when I was head of department at primary school and having to buy IT equipment and what to buy and not what to buy and procurement. And it is hard, especially when you want to cover all areas from foundation all the way up to year 6. It is difficult, but then you have to say, right, who's going to benefit this year, who's going to benefit the following year? But as far as I can see, that money being factored in is not going to be a benefit to our residents, not yet, until the leisure centre is open, and then be calling, and well, not be calling, but bringing in finance through people using the car park more often. So 10 months is a long time for it to be open. So at the moment, everything has just been pushed to the side, it's been brought in, and I hear your reasons, but to me, I can't support that. Other than that, the budget, apart from that, one thing I want to know is, which I can't find, the subscription for £84,000 for the chief exec. What's that for, please? Thank you.
Holly Whitbread.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you to Councillor George, my fellow ward councillor, for her engagement in the budget process. And I understand there was a very lengthy call-in meeting last week, which I've heard all about. So thank you for your questions and engagement around that. And I don't think I'm going to be able to convince you this evening, but what I would say is we don't want to be in the position that we're in with the car park. It's unfortunate. When we built the car park, we received advice from kind of the top people about different levels of income that were going to be generated. We built the car park or planned the car park in a very different time. So yes, things aren't quite as we would like them to be. However, it would be financially irresponsible for us as a council just do nothing about it. And actually, Mr Small has highlighted that he wouldn't sign off this budget as a Section 151 officer without the inclusion of the car park, which leaves us with very little room to move around and to go. She quite rightly highlighted that when the leisure centre opens, which is the whole reason the car park was built in the first place, to enable the delivery of the leisure centre, it's likely that the car park will be better used and those finances will start coming in more regularly. So I'm sorry I can't provide the answer that she wants, and I'm sorry that we are going to disagree on this matter, but I believe, and the advice I've received from officers and the advice I've received from Councillor Matthews, I believe that on balance it's the right thing to do and it's the financially responsible thing to do. I'm not sure what she's talking, what she's referencing in relation to the chief executive. It might be the LGA. Was it the LGA? It's a subscriptions to, and we'll get you a written answer on this, but it's subscriptions to various organisations, including things like the local government organisation, which provides training for members across the council. I know Councillor Dadd has made use of it for planning training. All members can make use of it, as do officers as well. Thank you.
Councillor Tim Matthews.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm gutted that I haven't managed to provide a compelling enough argument to Councillor George. I was contemplating releasing an audio book on the car park for those struggling to sleep of an evening could listen to me talking about it again and again. I think, yeah, look, it's at the end of the day, completely respect Councillor George's position on this. I don't think there's anything else I can possibly say to convince otherwise. I think it's important when looking at the budget. It's never as simple as, you know, one in, one out. If that's going in, that's coming out. It's a balanced approach across the whole thing. It's why it's such a complex process and why it's so important that we have the engagement from everyone, as I've mentioned already this evening. And when members put compelling arguments forward and we can look at, you know, all the various sources of income, it's never as simple as one in, one out. So it's I can't give a direct answer of, you know, that's happening, so that means X, Y and Z isn't happening, because it's a very complex process and obviously there's so many different streams to it. But I hope other members this evening will take the example set early in this evening from Councillor Murray, who I thought took a very pragmatic approach, as is well expected of him now. And I think to myself, that actually, yes, there's always going to be an element of something that people don't particularly like. I would love to be in a position where we don't need to make any cuts, and you know, things are thriving, and we're increasing revenue, so that we're not making the decisions on, you know, what can be cut. We're making decisions on what can be expanded. That for me is the long-term goal. Unfortunately, we've heard the reasons why that isn't possible. So I think that's all I really want to mention on the car park. Just if I may, Chair, to come back to Councillor Morgan, 10 years the contract's been agreed, so I hope, thankfully, managed to get that quickly for you as well.
Councillor Brooks.
Thank you, members. I wasn't sure whether I was going to speak tonight or not. But in the end, I have chosen just to say a few words, because I feel that one thing there are one or two experiences as a councillor that stay with you forever. One of them was a family moving to Norway House. A couple of them this was about 5 years ago, and we still had an office here where people could pay council tax. And I remember the man in front of me was saying he just couldn't afford to pay his council tax. What should he do? And I also remember the people in what's now Roding Ward who had had the bailiffs visit because they hadn't realised that council tax was a priority debt. And the man was self-employed, and they took away his car. And so we must remind ourselves tonight that this is a regressive tax, and it bears no relation to people's ability to pay, unlike our income tax. And I feel, as elected members, we must always remember this. And I do respect that Councillor Whitbread has tried to keep his council tax low, because for many people it's a real struggle to pay it. And there's a danger of forgetting it. The reason I come with a heavy heart today, and I will vote for this budget, I welcome all the collaboration that's been involved at all sides of the chamber. But I feel sad because there are people that are losing their jobs that won't be wanting to lose the jobs. Some people will be happy to go. It might be a good time. I've been made redundant myself. It isn't a great feeling. And I think we must always remember that the people running this place, as Councillor Murray has alluded to, the oil in the engine, are actually the staff. And I went to see a resident over the weekend with a problem. And what impressed me was the fact that she had come into the council offices, made her way to Epping from Loughton, and the service she had had from the front desk, and they put up with an awful lot down there, but she had had absolutely first-class service, and that officer on the front desk had contacted all the right people about the problem, because when I got to speak to those people in the right departments, you know, I'm making it clear I'm not disclosing anything about what the problem was, but she had been given a first-class service. And I will be voting for this budget, but it is a real sadness that we do have to make people redundant.
Thank you for that. Councillor Holly Whitbread.
Thank you, Chairman, and I just wanted to thank Councillor Brooks for that contribution. As always, she reflects the mood of the meeting, I think, and we must never remember why any of us get involved in local politics. One, it's about community, and two, it's about people. For the last few years, I was the Cabinet Member for Housing, and some of the stories and situations that I learnt about in that role were truly shocking. And actually, one of the things I think we often forget is that while we're very lucky to live in a most beautiful district with significant levels of wealth, we also have many pockets of deprivation. And actually, because of some of the issues that our economy is facing and some of the challenging decisions that have been made by government, there are individuals who weren't previously experiencing difficulties who are. And I think we all see that reflected in our casework, whether it be people at risk of homelessness or worried about the next bill coming in or worried about turning the heating on. So I think in setting this budget, we can't forget what difficult times we are going through. And she's absolutely right when she talks about the fact that it's the officers that solve that. You know, we send an email on to the officers, but it's them who goes out and sorts out the problem. It's them who chases it up. You know, our job is to represent, to push for the best deal for our residents, but we're not the ones enacting it on a day-to-day basis. And I think that's really why I made the comment in my speech. You know, this budget setting process is not about me. You know, it's not about individuals, it's about everyone, and it's about our whole community. So thank you for those comments, and I think that was a good note to hopefully conclude the budget debate on. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, we have on page 84 of our agenda 7 recommendations, which I would like to take all together. Because of the importance of these decisions, we will have a recorded vote on the recommendations contained within the report. May I ask Mr. Gary Woodall to explain how we will take the recorded vote?
Thank you, Chairman. The list I have is in alphabetical order, so it starts with Councillor Allgood and it will finish with Councillor Yerrell. Alphabetical order for surname. 3 options. Please answer clearly. We are being webcast. For, against or abstain. Okay, so I think we'll get started. Councillor Allgood. Councillor Ardakani. For. Councillor Balcombe. For. Councillor Amos.
For. I slipped it very loud.
Turn the microphone off, please. Councillor Baldwin. Councillor Bassett. Councillor Bedford.
Councillor Bedford for.
Councillor Bromwich. Councillor Brooks. Councillor Burrows.
For.
Councillor Shalal Holden.
For.
Councillor Cohen.
For.
Councillor Church.
For.
Councillor Dadd. Councillor Gabbett.
For.
Councillor George.
For.
Councillor Heather.
For.
Councillor Jones.
For.
Councillor Harold Kaufman.
For.
Councillor Will Kaufman.
For.
Councillor Kesker. Councillor Lee.
For.
Councillor Lyon.
For.
Councillor Lucas. Councillor Malcolm.
For.
Councillor Matthews.
For.
Councillor McCann.
For.
Councillor McIver.
For.
Councillor Mead.
For.
Councillor Lisa Morgan.
For.
Councillor Richard Morgan. Councillor Morris.
For.
Councillor Murray.
For.
Councillor Owen. Councillor Parsons.
For.
Councillor Pond.
For.
Councillor Pugsley.
For.
Councillor Rackham.
For.
Councillor Sharif.
For.
Councillor Stocker. Councillor Sunger.
For.
Councillor Chris Whitbread.
Almost did it. For.
Councillor Holly Whitbread.
For.
Councillor Janet Whitehouse.
For. For.
Councillor John Whitehouse.
For.
Councillor Wiskin.
For.
And last but not least, Councillor Yerrill.
For.
Chairman, that is unanimous. The budget has been passed.
Thank you very much. Thank you all. Item 15 on our agenda is the council tax setting for 2025 to 2026. May I ask Councillor Holly Whitbread to present the report?
Thank you, Chairman. You'll be very relieved to know this is the last time you're going to hear my voice this evening. This is the formal part of the budget setting process, the formal approval of the council tax charge for the council tax charges as broken down by the different precepting authorities, which is the Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner, the County Council, the District Council and the individual town and parish councils. I hope members are able to approve this along with the council tax base for the next financial year. I will not make any political commentary on the individual precepts, but I hope members can agree with this report this evening. Thank you.
Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm not going to make any commentary either, but I'm just going to share 4 lines from Appendix A. We have 4 town councils in Epping Forest, and I just found the 4 lines very interesting. In first place, Waltham Abbey, 46.8, £146.80p, Parish Bandy. In second place, Epping, £119.51p, Parish Council Tax Bandy. In third place, Ongar Town, £109.36. No comment from me. In fourth place, but I should declare I'm a member of Loughton Town Council, Parish Bandy, £80.48. I will allow members of the public to draw their own conclusions.
Councillor Holly Whitbread.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm not sure, I said I wasn't going to make any political commentary, but I do think Councillor Murray makes a very good point, and I think people can probably work out for themselves whether their individual town or parish councils provide good value. I've got different views of towns and parishes in my own areas. I would say that Faden Boys is a slightly more expensive parish council, as Clive will know, but they do provide excellent facilities for the village, as I'm sure Loughton do as well. But I would question the value and the value for money for some. Thank you, Chairman.
Any more? No, nobody has another comment. Right, in that case, members, you have no more questions and no more comments. So, members, we have 2 recommendations on page 155 of our agenda. Because of the importance of this item, we will have another recorded vote on the recommendations contained within the report. May I ask Gary Woodall to explain how we will take those recorded votes?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, our second and hopefully final recorded vote tonight, same as before, for, against and abstain. Unfortunately, we can only use 1 microphone at a time at the moment. So I don't know, I might try and use another microphone and shout, and then it will free up your microphone to answer. So we'll see if this works. No, it's not going to work. Okay. Councillor Allgood.
For.
Councillor Amos.
For.
Councillor Ardakani.
For.
Councillor Balcombe.
For.
Councillor Baldwin. Councillor Bassett.
For.
Councillor Bedford. Councillor Bromwich. Councillor Brooks.
For.
Councillor Burrows.
For.
Councillor Shalal Holden.
For.
Councillor Cohen. Councillor Church.
For.
Councillor Dadd.
4.
Councillor Gabbett.
4.
Councillor George.
4.
Councillor Heather.
4.
Councillor Jones.
4.
Councillor Harold Kaufman.
4.
Councillor Will Kaufman. Councillor Kesker.
4.
Councillor Lee.
4.
Councillor Lyne.
4.
Councillor Lucas.
4.
Councillor Malcolm.
4.
Councillor Matthews.
4.
Councillor McCann.
4.
Councillor McIver.
4.
Councillor Mead.
4.
Councillor Lisa Morgan. 4. Councillor Richard Morgan.
4.
Councillor Morris.
4.
Councillor Murray.
4.
Councillor Owen.
4.
Councillor Parsons.
4.
Councillor Pond.
4.
Councillor Pugsley.
4.
Councillor Rackham.
4.
Councillor Sharif.
4.
Councillor Stocker.
4.
Councillor Sangha.
4.
Councillor Chris Whitbread.
4.
Councillor Holly Whitbread.
4.
Councillor Janet Whitehouse. Councillor John Whitehouse.
4.
Councillor Wiskin.
4.
And Councillor Yerrell.
4.
That is unanimous again, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you very much, councillors. We go on now to item 16 on our agenda, which is the calendar of meetings for the year 2025 to 2026. May I ask the Councillor Smriti Patel? So I think that's for you, Chris Whitbread.
Thank you, Chairman. And obviously the report is set out before you. It's been to Cabinet and overview and scrutiny for consideration. I know Mr Woodall has put hours of work into trying to please everybody, which is never possible on calendars of meetings. But members, I just ask you to agree with the recommendation and the calendar before you.
Councillor Murray wishes to speak.
Yes, I am aware of the lateness of the hour, but I do have some serious concerns. Can I just first of all correct the Leader of Council? I might be wrong and I'll be correcting myself if I am, but I don't think this has gone to scrutiny. It went to Cabinet. I wasn't able to get to that Cabinet meeting because of an urgent... I was going to join it online. I'd had the link sent to me, but I had an urgent constituent case that took the whole of the evening, so I apologise that I couldn't make this point of Cabinet, but as far as I know, it hasn't gone to scrutiny. That's my understanding. I do have a serious concern. That's why I am taking the time, even though we've had a long budget discussion. We understand the model, Cabinet scrutiny. A really important part of that process is scrutiny, as shown in the budget process. I'm speaking about communities. I think it also probably relates to place as well. But I am very concerned that communities has gone down to 2 scheduled meetings. If you look at page 166, we will be 6 months into the council year before there is a communities scrutiny meeting, October the 25th. Sorry, that's 25. The year's 25, it's October the 14th. The next one, and the only other one scheduled for the year, is March the 3rd. I've already had dealings with an officer this week on an important housing issue where he automatically assumed that there was going to be a meeting in June. And I had to point out to him that it wouldn't be going to the June meeting because we're not meeting till October. Now, I do understand, and I've had a telephone conversation with Mr Woodall as well, and I do understand within the report it does say other meetings could be put in as required, but quite frankly I don't think that's good enough because we've all got busy diaries. I would much rather at least one, if not two, other meetings were in the diary and they were cancelled if they were not required. I think it's almost inevitable the communities with the bulk of stuff it scrutinises, particularly around housing, will need more than 2 meetings. And we all know, quite understandably, a meeting is arranged with consultation with the chairman, possibly the vice chairman as well, but it is not arranged around the rest of the meeting, and I'm not asking for that. But what I am asking for is that because, in my opinion, and I'm sure other members of the community, and possibly place, but I can only talk about community, I strongly feel that 2 meetings is not enough. We've already got a senior officer, the most senior officer in housing, assuming that there was going to be one in June, and I had to point out to him that there wasn't going to be at the moment. I would much rather they were in the diary than the calendar, and that they were cancelled if they were not necessary. I think that is a much better way to do it. So I certainly couldn't be voting for this en bloc with only 2 meetings scheduled for communities. Thank you, Chairman. Sorry about contributing, but I did think it was an important point.
Councillor Chris Whitbread.
Thank you, Chairman. I certainly agree with Councillor Murray. I'd rather have the dates in the diary than not in the diary. I think that makes perfect sense. And of course, these calendars do shift considerably during the year with additional meetings. I'm already thinking of one additional meeting that's going to be happen sooner rather than later. Anyway, can I suggest that we agree the calendar, but that Mr Woodall will come back to either overview and scrutiny, and I apologise if I got that wrong, Councillor Murray, come back to overview and scrutiny with an additional 2 dates, whether they're used or not, because I've seen a number of scrutiny panels cancelled this year, but just come back with at least 2 additional dates to scrutiny to be confirmed, if that's possible. Yeah, place and community, yeah.
For each scrutiny committee.
Chairman, if we can find additional dates for both panels, they can always be cancelled, because that does happen from time to time. I know place has been cancelled next week, but at least if the dates are in the diary, it gives you that choice. And it's really difficult. And you know, I'll use your name in vain, Councillor Murray, but Councillor Murray sits on a town council as well, and you get the conflict of meetings. If nothing's in the diary, it's gone. So I just think the idea of finding a couple of dates to go in the diary, particularly around June when we put the committees back together again, it's always a good thing in June to get together, because that's probably more important than some of the winter meetings where people just don't come out of the night.
We have next Brooks, Councillor Brooks.
Yeah, I won't repeat what my colleague Councillor Murray has said, but I'd like to add to it, because I felt a disappointment that there were only 2 place as well as communities. The thing I'd like to say is on the model that we have here with the cabinet, which we've been running for 25 years or so, the scrutiny panels are really important, and the overview, and in a way the smaller panels are more important, that things are thrashed out there. Really, that's all I'd say. That's a great idea, Councillor Whitbread. If you want to add a couple of I thought it might have been done deliberately, because I know that Mr Woodall, you know, that hardly any of them left in democratic services, so it's very hard to staff the meetings. The other thing that just occurred to me is that when I looked at the Essex school dates, we hit half term again next year, because the Essex half term is the 16th to the 23rd, and though it doesn't personally affect me, I can see some absences here from probably members who have got children or grandchildren. We sometimes hit half term and we sometimes don't. That's my only comment.
Thank you very much. Councillor Chris Whitbread.
Thank you, Chairman. When I first came on the council, it was religious holidays were the more difficult ones to cover. And I think it was always Maundy Thursday, wasn't it, Councillor Murray, that used to be a problem. You'll never get it perfect. There's no way of getting this perfect. Mr Woodall spends hours and hours doing this, and then the management team will go, no, that's not quite right. You know, so I know how much work goes into doing this. But I think and I agree with you, you know, you don't want meetings for the sake of meetings where there's nothing to discuss, but you want them to be constructive, and that's where I find the smaller committees work really well. I agree with you there. So I think if we go ahead the way I said, find an extra couple of dates for those two committees, go back to overview and scrutiny, agree those dates. If they then have to be cancelled, they have to be cancelled. If they don't, they don't, and I'm sure we'll find a way around it. Do you know, councils of the future, I think members will have to, and we talked about this before, years ago, that in the end, sometimes it would just be a meeting of members and not necessarily always require officers present. We can behave sometimes, you know.
Councillor Janet Whitehouse.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, until Councillor Murray pointed out, I hadn't realised that the scrutiny committees had gone down to only 2 meetings. And I would like to ask who made that decision, because scrutiny is the main role of non-cabinet members. And we used to meet every 2 months. Then it went down to 4 a year. And that wasn't really sufficient to do proper scrutiny. Those of us who've had the excellent training that we had on scrutiny know what good scrutiny looks like. And it's really just become a meeting with presentations where we ask questions. We're not doing real scrutiny on even 4 a year. So 2 is impossible. But where was that decision taken? Because we weren't consulted at Scrutiny Committee. And as I say, it's our main role. I wonder how many councillors here have no role at all in the council, apart from turning up to council meetings, because Planning Committee has now gone down to 2. Many of us who are involved in planning committees no longer are. And you know, there'll be no role for us soon with only two meetings a year. We can't do a proper job on that. So please, could someone tell me where the decision was taken?
Councillor Whitbread, sorry.
Thank you, Chairman. If I'm completely honest, I don't know where the decision was taken, but we can rectify that decision. When we talk about the place and communities committees, I've got to say there is some members who turn up to everything and really get engaged in each of these committees. There are other members who do their council work a different way. You know, but at the end of the day, not everyone does turn up at these committees, even when they're called, and sometimes they're barely core in some cases. So we have to be honest about that side of things. I've got to say, having attended all but one of the recent planning committee meetings, I think, personally, I find it even better to engage now. I spoke on 3 in my local communities last night, and I think they're working really well, but you've got to make your time to actually go to them. And I've seen lots of members turn up to them, play an active part, and actually a real good contribution. So, you know, that's down to individual members. When I first came on the council many years ago and we had the committee system, I was encouraged to attend as many meetings as possible to start to understand what's going on. You know, you know, and again, we've seen demonstrations of that this evening around the questions around Regis. If you attend meetings, you find out what's going on within the council. As a councillor, that's what you should want to do.
Councillor Jodie Lucas.
Thank you, and I don't mean to take up any more time on this particular topic, but as chairman of the Communities Committee, I thought it was important that I spoke. As current chairman, and I'm not sure that I'll be chairman next year, but I would just like to make the point that 2 meetings probably wouldn't be sufficient to cover what we cover, and I'd like to thank Councillor Murray for bringing that that comment this evening. And as much as it does say that necessary meetings would be added, but I would definitely like to see 3. I know that we have the additional meeting in March that's with the police usually as well, so I'm sure that it wouldn't have sat with just 2 anyway, but I would like to see additional meetings put forward. Thank you.
Members, the recommendation is to approve the draft calendar meetings subject to the changes that our leader, Chris Whitbread, has made. Is that okay? Thank you so much. Right, now, members' item is number 17 on our agenda, is motions. We do not have any motions, so we can move straight on. Right, item 18 on our agenda is the report of the Chairman of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. May I ask Councillor Roger Baldwin to present the report, please?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Yep. So, since my last report to full council, the Overview and Scrutiny Committee held a meeting on the 26th of January, and this meeting was focused on the budget and provided an opportunity to comment on the general approach and the specific proposals. And that's a very long and drawn-out meeting, and councillors made a very good. We did a very good scrutiny. There were many useful contributions, and it really made a big difference in preparing for the budget and thrashing through all the very sort of controversial issues we had in order to bring forward a balanced budget as we have this evening, and of course we've passed it this evening. So that was a very effective, and in my opinion the collaborative approach has been very useful, and I hope that we'll continue that in future years. I think that other members also want that format to continue. As you all well know now, there was a call-in in regard to the Cottage Lane car park, and that was on the 12th of February, and I chaired that informal meeting, and members obviously know now that they've received notification of the outcome of that meeting. All the issues were discussed, and all the options surrounding the Cottage Lane car park were discussed, and Councillor Matthews was very good in outlining the issues. And at the end of the meeting, there was an agreement to withdraw the call-in, as we know now. In this civic year, there are a couple of meetings left of the Overview and Scrutiny this year. One is next Wednesday, when we'll just cover the schedule of the work programme. And of course, the final scheduled meeting of the year will be 25th of March, which is normally a popular meeting because obviously we have the Youth Council, and I know that we all enjoy when the Youth Council do attend. So I would encourage all members to come to that meeting. And yeah, I think that's about it. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor.
Yeah.
Any comments or observations? Anybody? No? Or has anyone else got anything up there? No? Okay, right. Thank you very much. Item 18 on our agenda is the number 9. Sorry, members' item is number 19 on our agenda. Joint arrangements and external organisations. Are there any members who would like to give a verbal report? Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Chairman. I've been asked by Mr Woodall just to bring this to members' attention so it can be added to the minutes. I don't intend to read the email I sent to all members this morning, but can I just bring members' attention that I sit on the Rolling Valley Meadows Nature Reserve, the premier nature reserve in the district, on behalf of the council. I did send an email outlining a full report. As it's becoming part of the minutes, I would just like to make one change, because a member did actually ask to see the annual report. Within that email, I said that the annual report had been just published. I should have written the annual report has been just written. As soon as it's published, I will let the member know who was particularly keen to see it. But I just bring that email to members' attention so it can form part of the minute of this meeting.
Thank you, Councillor. Anybody else? No. Okay, thank you. Item 20 on our agenda is exclusion of the press and public. Members, you have received notification that we have 2 items for discussion on the supplementary council agenda, which we are to be discussed under section 100 in brackets A and in brackets 4 of the Local Government Act 1972. The press and the public will be excluded from this part of the meeting, and the webcast will be switched off. Members, are you in agreement for the press and the public to be excluded from this part of the meeting? Thank you.